All right, I have another honest review slash walkthrough of another booking plugin. This time it's called LatePoint, and it's a mature, I'm going to use this word a lot in this video, by the way. It's a mature plugin, meaning it's been around for a while, but it was recently acquired, invested in by Brainstorm Force, which is the same company behind the Astra theme, Spectra, Block Builder, SureCart, SureMembers, ZipWP, big company. So they've recently acquired or gotten an investment stake into LatePoint, and that is the booking plugin that they are releasing, not like a Sure Bookings. They're sticking with LatePoint, at least at the time of recording this video. And LatePoint is where they're going to be focusing all of their booking related integrations, such as integrating SureCart with that payment solution, all that type of stuff. So in this video, I want to do a couple of things. First off, I want to start off with my TLDR slash upfront conclusions about whether you should get it. And then we'll walk through, kind of like do a walkthrough, a setup, show you how everything works, and then we'll cap it off at the end. So the upfront conclusions, should you get LatePoint? At the time of making this video, they currently have a lifetime deal. If you miss the lifetime deal, that's fine. They also have really great affordable pricing that's fairly competitive as well. And I have a link in the description. If you go to convology.com/latepoint, I'll shoot you right to the best deal at the time, whether that's the LTD or the best discount that you can get on LatePoint. You'll find it at convology.com/latepoint, linked down below. So do I recommend it? Yes, I do recommend LatePoint. And I want to break this down into why I recommend it and kind of what it's up against. So if you are a booking-based business, meaning you make appointments and that's the main focus of your business. It's a main focus of my business. I generate the vast majority of my company revenue doing bookings, which is a lot of work, but tools like this help make it a little bit easier. So if that's you or your business, and this is the important part, and you want a WordPress-based solution, and this one's a pretty good one, then yes, go with LatePoint. There are a couple others on the market. I just recently made videos on a few of them. They all have their positives and their negatives, what they do well and their shortcomings. LatePoint is, again, here's the word, a mature solution. It's been available for several years. It was on Code Canyon for a while. It's the most polished presentation. Again, link in the description. There's in the header, you can go to Playground. You can test it out. They'll even give you like a 7-day free trial. And it's not like a brand new solution where they're running rapidly to try to keep up and release features for like base usage. It's done, it's complete, and it's just now kind of having its big day in the spotlight because it was acquired, and here we are. So yes, the TLDR, I recommend it. Best deal that you can get linked below. Now, who is this not right for? Okay. If you don't want a WordPress-based booking solution or you don't do bookings, then don't get it. Like that's kind of what this comes down to. It's not for everyone. Do not have LTD FOMO. You do not need a booking plugin if you do not have a booking-based business. Don't get caught up in the hype of trying to buy something. It's not what this is for. I want to go on to the rest of this video now. I'm going to include timestamps. I'm going to do my best. It's a lot of work to do timestamps. I'm going to do timestamps of kind of like the big points of the video. And feel free to skip around, right? Actually, if you're done now, feel free to leave. I don't care about the YouTube algorithm. I'm not a YouTuber. Feel free to leave. Don't buy it or buy it if you're interested. But I'm going to put timestamps for the rest of the video that include my settings overview, my walkthrough, my implementation, and you can skip around and find what's interesting to you. If you think you might be interested in LatePoint, I recommend watching the whole video. I do a good job I think I do a good job walking through all the settings and talking about what I find is kind of like a shortcoming and what I find it does really, really well. And I hope that you find value in this video. So let's dive in. All right, this is when you install the plugin, they walk you through this little wizard. I'm on my demo site here. And you don't have to walk through this, but I found it was pretty helpful. So let's just do this together. We're going to get started with the setup wizard. So to get started, they want you to create your agents, or at least create an agent. Basically, these are the people that can be booked into appointments. So if you're like me and it's just you at the business and someone books an appointment with Doug at Convology, then that is the agent that I'll create. All right, let's click save there. And now there it is. There's Doug, the agent. I will say this is the first kind of critique that I have. There we go. I'll bring myself back up in a pip in the lower right for this. I will say this is my first critique of LatePoint. It's that they use the terminology agent far too much. I don't like the word agent. I mean, if it were like real estate or insurance or whatever else uses agents, maybe that would work for you. It doesn't work for me. I don't want to be called an agent. I never referred to myself as an agent. I want to change that terminology. So it turns out you can't, at least not right now, unless you use Loco Translate. It's a free plugin you can pick up. But I don't want to install another plugin to make this work. So I reached out to Adam and I said, can we change this? And he said, unfortunately, not right now, but he's working on getting that updated in a future release. So pet peeve number one, not a big fan of that. Let's click on to this. Let's go to next. Here we can add services. So like, let's say we offer like a tech help call, which I do if you're interested. And you can set a duration. I think 60 minutes works for me. And you can upload an image for the service. I won't do that right now, but we'll just save that. And yes, you select the agents. That would be me. Maybe we'll add one more service just so that we have two in here. We can do something like maybe we'll do like a free consultation, and maybe we'll make this one 30 minutes, and then we'll click save. Great, so we have two options here. That's fine. We'll click next. And now we can set kind of like a work hours for the business. Spoilers, I've already kind of like played around with setting this up on my actual website, and I do recommend you set up the work hours here. You might be tempted to set them up later, maybe on like a per service or per agent level, which you can totally do. But I do recommend you set your hours here because this comes in handy just being your default for everything. So set your hours that you're available. They do a really nice job here. So on my website, when you book with me, I currently use an external SaaS tool called Book Like a Boss, and a stupid name, by the way, but Book Like a Boss. And up until this, I thought they had the best hour of the day tool, but this actually is better. I really like the interface here. You can say like you work from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Mondays, and then you can add another work period. The start time for the second work period, maybe take an hour for lunch from 11 to 12. So it would be from 12 until, let's say you want to be done by 3 p.m. So that's how I would set things up. I really like this. My one feedback here, in case anyone at LatePoint ever watches this, my feedback here would be I would love a button that says apply to all. Like that would be phenomenal if it just went bloop and like filled out the rest of the days, so I don't have to click into each one and make the updates. So that's a little bit of feedback. Let's pretend we were happy with our schedule. Let's click next. And now they're like, ta-da, you're done. So here's a short code. We can copy that for like a book button. I'll show you some pretty cool stuff you can do with that. But let's open up our dashboard. First thing you'll notice, it does this kind of like, wow, am I still on my WordPress website kind of look to it? It's like a total takeover of the screen. Here, why don't I just get rid of myself? We don't need me in a pip anymore. So essentially, it does this total takeover, and you almost think you've like left your website, and even in the bottom left, there's a back to WordPress button. And I like it. I actually really do like it. But I will say my one critique here is that it is, and this isn't a bad thing, but it is more geared towards multiple reps working at a business. If it's just you, you're kind of like, and again, I critique the dashboards for a lot of these tools. You're kind of like, if it's just you, like, do I need to know my work hours? Like it just becomes, it feels very like tracking your hours corporate, which I'm totally not. But yeah, it's a really good looking dashboard. And when there starts to be more appointments in here, it starts to look really good. So kudos to them on the dashboard. Okay, so now we need to go into settings. And this is something that actually trips up a lot of people already. I've already been getting a lot of emails saying, Doug, I didn't get any of my add-ons that I bought. I got the pro version and I didn't get them. So if that's you, by the way, I'm not making fun of you. That was me too. I'm like, where the heck are my add-ons? So they've kind of hidden it away under settings. So take a step back. If you can't find your add-ons, go to settings, system, and you didn't activate your license. Duh. Like that's exactly what I didn't do. So let me activate my license and then we'll go from there. And that's how you get all your add-ons. So there we go. I am all activated now. And again, your license is inside of your LatePoint account on their website, which I think is actually now using the SureCart license system. All right, so let's go ahead and let's kind of go back to the dashboard and let's start walking through each of these things. Let's do a complete walkthrough for you. So we have our dashboard. Then we have our calendar, which is like this running view. And if you import your Google Calendar, which I'm not going to do because it's going to show you all my personal business, but it'll start to populate all your like Google imports and stuff like that. Let's talk about real quick. What about Apple Calendar? What about CalDev? What about all these other things? Not everyone uses Google Calendar. I hear you. Google Calendar is the low-hanging fruit. All that kind of stuff is coming. It is in the roadmap. But all of that will populate here, and you can have a day view or you can have a week view. I tend to look at my calendar in a week view. It's really nice because it like shows, interestingly, by default, you can remember we blocked off on Mondays 11 to 12. So it shows blocked off time with like this red line area, and we're off at 3. This is a decent calendar view. I think it works for maybe businesses that need to manage multiple people. For me, I actually use Google Calendar, so I manage my business on Google Calendar. I will like open up Google Calendar and I'll add and remove appointments there. So to be honest, I probably won't use this calendar page. Appointments is where you can see any booked appointments or manually book one. We'll come back to that. Payments, again, you can create a transaction, create an appointment. We'll come back to that. Customers, we're kind of getting cart before the horse here. We'll come back to these sections. Now going to services, these are going to be the 2 services that we created during the setup process. You can create categories. So for example, if I were to create a category called help calls and then save that category, I could then go under services and I could add these services. For example, my tech help call, I could move this over to the help calls category, and then I could scroll down and save changes. You can see it move down there, and I could add another service, and maybe that service will call something like, maybe we'll make another one like high level help calls. It's something I do a lot of. So there we go. Now we have 2 services under our help calls. The agents tab is actually really well done. Even if you're a solo person, you would come into yourself here, open up your agent section. You could connect this to a WordPress user if you desired. You can put your display name how you want it. And then you can come down and add additional contact info. You can add a bio for yourself. There's actually a section to learn more about the agents. Again, very like multi-agent oriented here. And then a bunch of other stuff that just like is very like multi-agent, like schedules and what services are offered. Again, this would be good if like you're working at like a salon or like a dog grooming place, and maybe only so many agents are able to clip a dog's toenails, or maybe only certain people specialize in hair color, stuff like that. So you have a lot of stuff down here that you can play around with in the agent view. Now let's go ahead and jump down to the add-ons section. This is what I think really kind of makes this plugin stand out even further beyond just this interface. We have these add-ons, and there's custom fields, which I think is super helpful. I don't really need a role manager. I don't need taxes. The webhooks is very interesting, although this does integrate with SureTriggers. So if you're not a SureTriggers user, this API webhook system is actually really nice for integrating with third-party tools. You want that one. The chat's pretty cool, although personally I just prefer email. This like integrates into the customer cabinet, which is like the dashboard they can log into after they book an appointment. This is super helpful for like if you're going to do a lot of like, hey Doug, I'm sick. Can I reschedule my appointment with you? You can chat through here. It's pretty nice. Coupons. We do want the Google Calendar and Google Meet one. We can install that one. I'll just do that right now. Group bookings, locations, a bunch of like default payment gateways and old school email tools. And then PayPal we'll skip. Let's go for Stripe though. We will install the Stripe integration. I'll show you how that works. Reminders is pretty cool. We'll install reminders. Service duration. That's a good one to do. I guess this is as good a point as any to talk about maybe my next minor little thing. Let me bring myself back up here in a pip. So one of the things that I do a lot of is, in addition to doing a lot of booked appointments, booked calls with people, I sell what I call bundled calls. So you can like go to my website and you can say, I want to book 3 calls with you and not 1 call, because I save like $100 when I book 3 at a time. And what's cool about my system on Book Like a Boss is that when they book the 3 calls, they don't actually have to schedule any of them right away. They can schedule 1, 2, 3, or none, and they get call credits. And so they can kind of sit on those credits and then book them in the future when they need the help, because they kind of saved. I have found that by allowing someone to book multiple calls and save, my revenue skyrocketed. So this doesn't have that. LatePoint does not have that feature. I was critical of Fluent Bookings for not having it. I'm critical of LatePoint for not having it. However, they just said on their Facebook group, and I've talked to Adam about this, it is coming in what looks like the January of 2024 update. So if you're watching this after that, January 2024 update should have that. Little disappointing. That's actually one of the biggest revenue generators for my business. So I'm like, well, I want to use LatePoint right now. Kind of hard to. If I were to use it, I'd be taking a step backwards. Can't do that. So I'm going to use this on my website when that feature becomes available, because for me, it's pretty mandatory. Let's continue. I think the service extras is pretty cool. We'll install that one, and then we will install the Zoom meetings add-on. Let's go for that one as well. So there we go. We've got all of those add-ons that we've chosen to be installed, and we're kind of good to go. So now I want to take a quick second. I'm going to full screen myself. That's how you know it's a serious discussion. Each of these add-ons that we just installed actually installs another plugin. But by default, that's not a bad thing. So first off, you should always strive to keep your number of plugins lower. And that comes from a mindset that not all plugins are well developed, well coded. You usually, like, I consult with people all the time, helping them improve their site speed, helping them just generally improve their website. First thing I do is I look at the plugins and I'm like, what have you installed? You've got 3 page builders, you've got 2 SMTP plugins, both trying to run. You've got 4 form builders, maybe multiple booking plugins. It's like, what are you doing? This is so much bloat. Some plugins activate multiple additional plugins, and LatePoint is one of those. So for each of those add-ons we installed, it added LatePoint, Google Calendar, LatePoint, Zoom, LatePoint, Extras. Each of those is a plugin. Having multiple plugins in and of itself does not slow a site down. Having multiple bloated or large footprint plugins does. So if the total disk size of these plugins was relatively small, the total resources needed for these plugins is very small, it's not an issue. From what I can see, these are lightweight. These are just simple code. Again, plugins are just lines of code that are put into containers and plugged into your website. Whether you inserted that code in one plugin or in 20 is irrelevant. It's the code inside of them that matters. With that said, yeah, it's a pet peeve of mine that I've got to be like, update, 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 up. You know what I mean? Like, that gets a little bit old. So, whatever. I respect that people have the option if they don't want to use custom fields and they don't have to install the custom fields code and their website is lighter. I respect that. That works. All right, on to kind of the rest of this. Let's actually get some of this set up. So we do have settings here. I want to jump back in there because I feel like that's a place where we can get started. Under settings, you can set up things like the default status of a call is pending approval or approved. I think for the default status, I'll do approved since I typically charge for my calls, but on a service level, we would want that to be pending so that someone just can't book a free call without me approving it. For date and time, I like the setup that they have by default. 12-hour clock is what we use in the United States with that date format, month, day, year. This interval, though, is something that's definitely got to change. So for me, I book my calls on a 1-hour interval. 15-minute intervals doesn't work for me. So we would need to change this to 60 minutes because you can't just do hours. It's all minute based. So for me, a 60-minute interval is what I want my calendar to be in. I don't need to toggle either of these on, but you can if you're interested. Now this setting is nice. This is basically like how soon can someone book something with you, like if it were same day. So like if you want people to book things next hour, like if it's noon and you want someone to be able to book like a 1 o'clock call with you, don't change this. Me, however, I would say I want at least 24 hours notice before someone can book with me. So I would put plus 24, put a space, and then type hours. Now, how far in advance can somebody book with you? I don't like letting anybody book more than 2 weeks ahead. I just never know what my calendar is going to be like. So 2 weeks. So +2, put a space, weeks. The rest of this is fine for my currency. And then we get down here to the phone settings. If that's your jam, I'm not going to do anything with phones, but you would change it there. You can change the visual style, rounded corners or flat. We'll stick with rounded. And instead of showing timeline, I do like to show time boxes. I feel like this is a good change. And then we'll hide the slot availability count. I like that setting. And then since we only have one agent, this is kind of irrelevant, but we will say that agents can only be present in one location at a time. I don't know, we only have one location. And then and this one's important to leave off because if I had like free consultations and paid calls and I didn't leave this off, like let's say I turned it on, it would basically tell the system, yeah, Doug can do a free call while he's on a paid call, which is not the case. And then we have our rescheduling and our cancellation. Those are pretty buried, but those are important. I typically allow customers to reschedule their bookings, and then you can set a restriction on when they can reschedule. I let them reschedule when there is at least 12 hours notice, sometimes 24. Let's just put 24. And then canceling their bookings, I don't let customers just cancel the booking right off on the website. I make them contact me because there are cancellation fees that just can't be addressed on a plugin. It's just too hard. And then we have these settings about whether or not you want to allow people to make like accounts on your website. I don't know how I feel about this. Historically, I've used an external service, so this really has never really been a thing for me. Like, do you want your WordPress users as customers? Do you want to require customers to set a password? Like right now, I'm just leaving all this stuff off. It doesn't really, like to me, I just kind of want people to book something. I don't want them to make an account. However, in the future, when LatePoint integrates with SureCart, that might change things. We will revisit that, of course, and I'll do a whole new video on the SureCart integration that's coming in the future. It's actually probably the biggest reason I'm using this plugin is because I really like SureCart and I want that integration. For now, I'm just going to leave all of this off, and my calendar is like a Calendly or a Book Like a Boss calendar. You can book a time, reserve it, pay for your slot, get an email, show up for the call to your Zoom link, call it a day. I don't need you on my website. And then we have our customer dashboard and login stuff, business settings, etc. Okay, so that is it for settings. I wanted to go through that because I just know there's questions and I think that's helpful. Here's our schedule that we set up during the setup wizard. If you need to do taxes, there it is. The steps section is, we'll hold a thought on this, put a pin in it because the step section is actually really cool. We'll come back to that. For payments to work, you need to, if you're using Stripe, you need to enable Stripe. And I do like the Stripe integration. So some, where you've seen recent videos on my channel, if you have, where some tools create Stripe integrations and they're like, we've got to create a brand new Stripe account. We've got to, blah, 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 Stripe Connect. How awful. Instead, I like this because I can go into my existing Stripe account, put in my keys, and then it just works. It just puts the money in my normal Stripe account. I add the webhook URL. We're good to go. If you're not familiar with where that is in Stripe, here's my Stripe account. Come in as test mode. I'm in test mode, so I don't expose anything, but you would be in live mode. Go to developers and you'll see this section here. Then you'll go to API keys and webhooks. You'll grab your keys. You'll come back here. You'll put your keys in here and take this webhook URL and make that a new webhook, and you're good to go. That's it for the payments. If you want to send the emails for a booking from your website, you will need to have like an SMTP plugin, something like Fluent SMTP is good. You can choose to enable the default WordPress mailer, and then you would choose your from name and your email address. You could probably even leave that off and your site will probably take over just fine. But what I really like also is that with their webhook and integration system into SureTriggers, you can kind of set this up to come from any service that you want. I might make a whole new video on how to set that up. But for now, it's a little bit too deep for kind of like this just initial walkthrough of the plugin and my impressions. But that's where you would handle that. And then if you come down here, you can install the SMS add-on, update some email system layouts. These are kind of just like your default, these are like pretty basic emails here. Next, I want to go to the processes tab because I feel like this has to do with the notification section. Under processes, you'll have like a new booking notification that we can click into. And we have a status of this notification, the name of it, what event triggers this, basically this process. You can choose only when certain conditions are met, time offsets, and then you can send emails, and these emails go to you and your person that booked with you. And these are actually pretty good. You can do a lot of like smart variables here. So like you can see the smart variables that open on the left. Super, super cool. You can customize this as much as you want. And then of course you can add a new process down here and then decide what triggers the process. Now, the last thing we'll go over is form fields before we dive in and start making a form here. This is going to be a long video, by the way. So here's our form fields, and we can, by default, I think you absolutely want a lot of these. I don't need people's phone numbers. Now with our custom fields add-on, we can come in here to the customer fields and say, Do we want to add more customer fields, give them labels, choose a fair amount of pretty good types of fields here, give default values, make them required, hide them or show them in the summary, so on. That's pretty good. I think that'd be super good for getting someone to book. Like in a piano lesson example, it would be, do you have a piano? What type of piano? How many years of experience do you have? What method books are you using? Etc. You can create custom fields for all of that. Now, when it comes to the Google Calendar integration, this is probably the weakest or the biggest shortcoming of LatePoint. The Google Calendar integration, if we toggle this on, requires a Google Calendar client ID, client secret key, and it requires you to have gone through the console setup for Google Calendar and Google's developer, blah, 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 blah. It is a total pain in the backside. It is so annoying to get this done. I'm not going to even pull the punches on it. There's no excuses for this. I know that they're fixing it. I know I've been told by Adam, and they've been public about it, that they are working to make this better by doing kind of like that one-click integrate with Google Calendar. But this is awful. This is a horrible user experience. 99% of the people are going to get totally confused on it. It's so involved that I cannot include how to set this thing up in this video. We'd be here another 20 minutes in an already too long video. If you want a video on how to set this up, and this is something that would interest enough people for my channel to make a video, please let me know. I will make one, but it's awful. So this needs to be fixed. That's how you connect. But that said, that's how you connect this. Please, LatePoint, Brainstorm Force, fix this. It needs to be fixed. Now, jumping over actually to my other website where I've configured this already. Once you do get your calendar integration done with Google, if you come to your user settings here, you will see that there is a Google Calendar setup per user. There will be a button for you to click to integrate with the developer app that you've created with Google Calendar. And you'll see here that it says LatePoint bookings will be synced to, and I was able to choose the calendar that I have access to that I want to sync to, meaning when someone books an appointment in LatePoint, like for my tech help calls, they'll be added here. And events will be loaded from 4 connected Google calendars. I can click edit. I'm not going to because it'll show my life. But essentially, I was able to take 4 other calendars that I have, check them for availability, like my family calendar. So like my daughter's doctor appointments don't get booked over, my wife's work doesn't get booked over, that type of thing. So if there's something on the family calendar or there's something that I've already booked, maybe I've got another booking going on, whatever it is, if I'm not free at that time, LatePoint will take those times off of my calendar, and that's made possible through this option here. Now for Zoom, that is my video meeting tool of choice, I guess. For Zoom, you toggle this on here under integrations, meetings. And again, similar to the Google one, the next major downside, I don't know what it is with these. Sorry, I get grumpy about this. I'll bite my tongue. I don't know why, but this is also the same way. You have to go to Zoom. You have to go to the marketplace, go to developer, and this is easy. This takes all of like 5 minutes to do. Get an account ID, a client ID, and a client secret ID. Not much to it. And again, if we come back to the LatePoint documentation here and we look for like Zoom and Zoom meetings add-on setup, they're pretty, actually that's the wrong one. That's also good too. Check that out. But this is kind of going what I talked about. You go to marketplace.zoom.us, go to developer at the top, click build app, and then you just follow the documentation. It works. I've tested it. Their documentation is pretty close to being completely up to date. And once you get all that set up, it works. And because I was grumpy about the Google one, enable Google Calendar right here. Again, you got to go to console.developers.google.com. At least they give you a link because that's hard to find, by the way. And then you just follow these steps, follow all these steps. And then, because you're a developer, right? Of course you are. Follow all these steps here. And once you're done, you can get it all connected. All right, enough of that. But once you've got all that filled in, let me jump over to my other site again and show you what you can do. Right below the Google Calendar setup we were just looking at, you can go to Zoom integration and you can connect to Zoom user, connect to your account, save your changes. And then when we go into jumping back to my other site now, when we go under our services, and we go under like Tech Help Call, we can scroll down and make sure that we've toggled on Create Zoom Meeting for Bookings. And this will automatically create, cancel, update, etc., all of your meetings for Zoom inside of your Zoom account tied to that specific user for that Zoom account. Thought that was pretty good, pretty worth mentioning. It's a good integration, but the setup for both Zoom and Google are just awful. Now I want to go through and set up like an actual booking setup situation to show you how that works. What I want to do is go into the services section first, and I want to go to one of our paid calls under our help calls that we created and edit the service. I do want to scroll down until I find service duration and price, and I want to set a charge amount for $199. We don't have a deposit, so we will leave that blank, and then click Save Changes. Now, I don't typically use service extras, things like, do you want like little add-ons, like almost like order bumps? But for the sake of setting this up, let's go ahead and create an extra service. Maybe we can, I don't know, come up with some fake ones for our call. So on the free consultation, they won't apply, but maybe on like the high level call, we'll just go with that. We'll go with like our high level one, and we'll call this, email automation snapshot. And we'll say that that is an additional $15. I'm completely making this up, by the way. And then we will save that service extra. Let's add one more just to have something in there. We'll click Add Service. Okay, we've got 2 of our add-ons. That should be sufficient. Now it's time to add the booking form to our website, and I wanted to come over here to LatePoint's documentation, which is actually really, really good. Here under booking form, if you wanted to have like all of your whole booking form, basically, it's this short code, which is probably the one we'll use for getting started. And then they have like different attributes, like you can choose to only auto select the first agent. We'll go through this because I think it's worth looking at. Then they have their button, and then they have the attributes that you can use with it. They have the customer dashboard, which is pretty cool. We'll go over that. And then they have like the agent list, which would be useful for other people, not for me. So we'll play around with some of these. So we're just going to come in to any page on our website, and I just put the short code here in just a normal block, a text block. You could use a short code block if you wanted to, but not necessary. And then let's save it and preview it to see what that looks like. So by default, that default short code that we used was like the everything short code. So with that everything short code, it's going to put all of our calls listed here. And you're going to see in a second why we put a pin in some of those other options, like for example, this section here where it says service selection with some text and this image. This is all customizable. So we're going to take a look at that in a second, but let's walk through and take a look at how this looks. So we have our tech help call, and by default, we can then choose an agent, but I feel like on a single site, we don't want this step. So we'll turn that off, but let's say they did select me. Now we have our booking section. We have our days that were available. And then you can notice here, it's, the November 14th. So you can see they can't book the 15th. There's no more time available. They need to book the 16th or later, and they can only book 2 weeks out. Those are the settings that we chose. We also down here chose to show, instead of a timeline, our time blocks. I like this view better. So there we go. We can select a time. So this is with the agent. Again, I don't like the word agent, but there it is. And then we can choose a new customer, or if they already have an account, they can log in, and we can choose, we saw the settings to be able to turn those settings off if we didn't want them to log in. But here would be the new customer. We can put in our info, put in our fakes, and then we can go to next step. And here's that summary. And the first thing that I forgot to do was to make it mandatory for them to pay right now. So this is where they could submit their booking, and then they would have to pay. But let's go through a couple of things on this. First, let's go back and keep going back, and let's take a look at what that high level one with those extras looked like. So if you go to the high level one, here's our 2 extras. We could have added images for it if we wanted to, but let's say I wanted both of these. You can see we've added our extras here on the right hand side, and it line items them. Super, super slick. I've got to find a way to use that. That's so slick. And then we would just proceed on with the rest of the booking. But let's come back into our website and take a look at what we can do to tweak this. Coming back into WordPress on the left-hand side, we'll go to LatePoint. Make sure we save our draft, go to LatePoint. Jumps right back in. Super fast, by the way. I love how quick it is. So we'll come back in here under settings and go to steps. You may remember we put a pin in this one. The first thing you'll see under location is that since you don't have any, this will be skipped. Love it. Service selection, if you wanted to edit how that works, you could come in here and change the terminology. You could use a custom step image. Again, change those words here. And again, if we wanted to change the image, we do it there. So here's where we would customize the rest of our sections, like select service extras, agent selection. Again, it's mostly just changing the words and the text involved. If we want to take any of these pieces out, we will actually go back to the LatePoint website, like for example here, and this short code, we will copy that, and that'll be what we use to remove them. But we'll come back in here and just see if there's anything else we want to look at. Everything looks fine. But if we do scroll down under agent display, you can choose whether you want to see that bio link we briefly mentioned. I want to hide the agent name from the summary and confirmation. That to me helps me get rid of that agent option a little bit, hides it just a little bit. Service categories might be helpful. We did turn that on and sends users directly to the confirmation step, skipping any confirmation. That's fine. We'll enable that. And then that left panel, remember where it showed the questions phone number? That's where you edit that there. And then some cool stuff with conversion tracking we won't go over. Back in our LatePoint demo, let's go ahead and I kind of like the side panel, so we'll leave that on. But let's just choose the selected agent by default. Let's save that draft, come back over here to our demo and refresh it. So we can already see one of the changes. We didn't make any changes to the images or the text here on the left, but we showed you how you could. Here, we turned on the categories. So if I click help calls, I can now choose a help call. So maybe this might be free calls or help calls. And then if I choose like a high level call here, by the way, it's showing the customer. I don't know if you picked up on that. It automatically detected the customer that I entered in the first time. So it kind of remembered. I think that's kind of interesting. So let's just check a few things that we want to keep. And then I did go back in and put in my Stripe test credentials. That's actually why the payment didn't appear before. But I can pick like a time in the future. And then this is why it remembered me, right? So if I change this to John Doe and then click next step, you can see it changed customer to John Doe. I don't know. It has some interesting remembering stuff. But this is the payment info section for the default Stripe integration. Something I am personally looking forward to is the SureCart integration. I feel like that'll be, I mean, this is already phenomenal, but that's why I really want this plugin is for the SureCart one. But I feel like the SureCart integration is sure to be something special. So if you wanted to check out, I think we would just enter in our fake Stripe credentials and then click submit. And here we go. This is what the default confirmation looks like that the user gets for their appointment. They can add it to their calendar. They can print it. They can see kind of like a rundown of what they got. And then there's this little option down here, which we did not turn off, which is, did you know you can create an account to manage your reservations, which I think is pretty interesting. If we click create account, we can set a password. And then we have this section here that says you can now manage your appointments in the personal cabinet. Now, one thing that was not set up right for me, and it might be because I'm already using SureCart, but I'll show you the settings for the cabinet. So if we come back to the short code documentation and we copy our, what they're calling the customer dashboard here, if we come back into our settings, I want to make a page, call it LatePoint cabinet. And then I want to just put in the customer dashboard code. And then I want to copy this URL, LatePoint cabinet that I'm using, and then I want to publish this. And then if we come back in under LatePoint and we go to settings, and then here under general, if we scroll kind of all the way down to the bottom, you can see the customer dashboard URL. Let's change that to /LatePoint cabinet, which is what we just created. Jump back over here and then jump into that cabinet via the link that was on that confirmation page. So by default, it automatically created an account for us. Honestly, I'm actually logged in as my admin account. I don't know if it like associated my admin with John Doe. We'll see. But essentially, here's what the customer would see when they come here. That what they booked in this particular walkthrough, we booked a high-level help call. We did give them the ability to reschedule. We'll take a look at that. They could add this to their calendar. They could click summary, which is, again, so stinking cool. And then we have my information, which is their information here. And then if they wanted to book a new appointment, so cool. I really, really like this page. To me, this is one of those things that puts LatePoint at the top of the list. So let's come back to my appointments. Let's click reschedule. And then here we go. A little modal comes up with the calendar. We can choose a new time and click reschedule. And it says confirmed. Now let's test what happens when we click log out. Oh, well, that's pretty cool. It kind of like, did it create a WordPress user? That's worth looking into. So like, let's test this. I think I put like test at fakeemail.com. And then it was like test. That's the password. Oh, wow. Okay, that's pretty cool. Did that store it as, I'm curious. You're coming along for an adventure. Let's go under users and test at fake. It didn't create a WordPress user. All you see is my like fake users in here. It didn't create a WordPress user because we disabled that. I like it. Wow. Okay. Huge fan of that. Is there even anyone in here? There's not. Huge fan of that setup. All right. Well, we are going to use that on Convology.com. That's for sure. Holy cow. I mean, the fact that that didn't do that, and the fact that it created like a quasi login because we didn't use WordPress users as customers. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I can use this on my primary website without having to push people to my subdomain where I normally give people accounts. If you're not following along, just realize on my main site, I don't like creating user accounts. I do that on a subdomain, members.convology.com. But this is really cool. All right. Huge props to the LatePoint team. I'm giddy about that. Okay, the last thing I did want to test was the booking button here. I really want to create a booking button on my website, put it up in my header. So like, let's copy the booking button. Actually, let's copy this part of the booking button. Again, just pre-selecting our agent. We're agent number 1 by default. And there is custom CSS that you can use, interestingly. There's a full list of those attributes, probably deeper than we'll go on this one. But let's copy this. Let's come back to our website. This is probably fine. Let's go back to WordPress. We're using the Astra customizer. So let's just jump into Astra. Okay, so one of the easiest ways that there might be a better way, but we'll just do an easy way that I know of to add a button in the header. This is just with Astra. So I'll just add a widget. Let's just add like widget 1. Click the little gear next to widget 1, add a short code, paste in our short code, and our button automatically appeared there. Let's publish those changes. And if we come back here, just to my empty test site here, we can click book appointment, and that should, open up in a nice modal here, where I'm just a user. Imagine they're on your site, they click book appointment, and this beautiful modal opens up. Again, that's the polish of a mature plugin. And this would look so professional. Someone can choose the type of help call they want. They could choose a time. Automatically remembers them if they've booked in the past, by the way, which I think is so cool. There it is. Click next step. Great. And then they'd be all set, all from a little like pop-up modal on your website. That is, by the way, I have tested it. It is really nice on a mobile device as well. All right. So to put kind of like a bookends on this video, kind of to recap also what I've said at the very beginning of the video in the TLDR and upfront conclusion, I really like LatePoint. I think of all the WordPress booking plugins, this one is at the top. It is not perfect. There are several shortcomings, which we've gone over, but I'm told that those are being addressed. To be honest, I honestly feel that you should never purchase software on the hopes of the future. It's just the name of the game. You never know what's going to happen. However, with the company behind this, Brainstorm Force, kind of tied into the SureCart ecosystem, I feel like there's a really, really bright future for LatePoint. And this is the plugin that I am personally choosing for my own website. But I maintain the same kind of like, what is it, mantra or credo? I always choose the best, or want to always choose the best tools to get the job done. I don't care if I've used something for 10 years. I don't care if I've previously shouted praises from the rooftops for a tool. I want to use the best tool for the job. And if I am a booking-based business and I want a WordPress-based solution, LatePoint is the one that I choose. I am going to have more LatePoint content, particularly as they fix a couple of the things that I think really need to be fixed, and as they develop the SureCart integration that I'm personally really looking forward to. As those things roll out, there will be more content like this here on the channel. And I have included my affiliate link down below in the description. If you have found this honest walkthrough / review of LatePoint helpful and you want to maybe show your appreciation by going through my affiliate link, I do get a commission from that. It is much appreciated. And if you have any questions about LatePoint that I didn't answer in this video, by all means, please leave a comment down below. I want to hear from you and I want to be able to help you. That's it for me. I'm Doug from Convology, and I'll see you in the next video.